Hey, it's Dr. John Terry, the Black Belt Leader, and welcome to the Black Belt Leadership Podcast, where each week I'm giving you tips, tools, insights, and resources to help you become a better version of who you are and what you do as you discover, develop, and deploy your own Black Belt leader within. You know, one of my favorite TV series as I was growing up was Batman. Yeah, I'm talking the corny 1960s version of Batman with Adam West as the Cape Crusader and Burt Ward as Robin, the Boy Wonder. You know, if you've ever watched the TV series, same bat time, same bat channel. And each week, what happened? Batman would find himself facing another archenemy with the fate of Gotham City in the balance. Now, every other week, it was a cliffhanger. Batman and Robin found themselves trapped by the likes of Penguin or Riddler or Mr. Freeze or Catwoman, and the final scene always left you hanging, wondering whether or not Batman and Robin were going to meet their end and what was going to happen in the event they didn't. Well, the following week, as was typically the case, Batman managed to retrieve a bat something from his amazing utility belt. He always managed to have exactly what was needed to free himself whatever he and Robin found themselves trapped in when they were in the clutches of the enemy. You know, I'm amazed that he could have, bat shark repellent or a bat laughing gas repellent or whatever was needed to get them out of whatever they faced. Batman always seemed to have what was needed. Now, if you watched the series and it ran for several seasons, the storyline repeated itself in episode after episode after episode. But for a kid growing up, it was one of those shows that kept you wondering, is Batman going to get out? Is Robin done? What's going to happen? And again, you were reminded to tune in, same bat time, same bat channel. Now, I was not only a fan of Batman, I was a fan of Wonder Woman. I was a fan of several TV shows, but one that really got my attention in the 70s was David Carradine, who starred as Kwai Chang Caine in the TV series Kung Fu. Yeah, being a martial arts guy and loving the martial arts from an early age, when I had the opportunity to watch this TV series about a half Chinese, half American orphan who was granted access to the Shaolin Temple, where he had a chance to train with the Shaolin monks and truly become a master in the art of Kung Fu, that storyline intrigued me. I found out years later, according to an excerpt from one of Linda Caldwell, Bruce Lee's widow, that Bruce Lee himself actually came up with the idea of the Kung Fu TV series, but America wasn't ready for an Oriental actor, so David Carradine was cast into the role. Now, again, going back to the storyline, Kwai Chang Caine, as an orphan, half Chinese, half American, first time ever being able to enter the Shaolin Temple and to train with the Shaolin monks. It was there he learned the art of Kung Fu, the philosophy of peace, and the opportunity to become a Shaolin monk himself. You know, the famous part of the TV series where he rolls up his sleeves and he reaches around the urn full of hot coals and scarring his forearms with the dragon and the tiger, and then walking out into the sand and dropping down and allowing the sand to cool the burns that were there. And for the rest of his life, he was marked with the symbol of the Shaolin Temple, the dragon and the tiger. Now, one of his best friends in the series was Master Po. And if you followed the TV series, you know that Master Po had a wish to go and visit the Imperial Kingdom and to visit the Forbidden City. And while he was there, the Emperor's nephew was coming on a procession. Master Po, being blind, didn't see them coming, and he was accosted by one of the guards. Kwai Chang Caine was there to celebrate Master Po's opportunity to fulfill a lifetime dream and intervened. And as a result of the intervention, in an act of self-defense, Kwai Chang Caine killed the emperor's nephew. As a result of that, he fled to America to escape sudden and sure death, but also to seek out a half-brother who had been rumored to live in the American West. That was the storyline of Kung Fu. Now, each and every episode of that TV series, what did we see? This peace-loving monk searching for his lost half-brother in situation after situation where he was forced to not only try to live a life of peace, but he was forced to have to defend himself or someone else. And as every conflict ensued and began to build in each and every episode of the TV series, we as viewers got a glimpse into Kwai Chang Cain's past. We had an opportunity to go into flashbacks, memories that he had of his training time in the Shaolin Temple. And it was through these excerpts, these flashbacks into the past, this framing of the story, that it gave us a deeper insight and a deeper understanding of the art of Kung Fu, the different animals that inspired the art of Kung Fu that was taught at the Shaolin Temple. And we also learn some valuable life lessons that Kwai Chang Caine learned along the way, living a life of peace being one of those that was there. Now, one of the unique things about those unique scenes, those flashback moments, those memories that Kwai Chang Caine allowed us to live out as we watched the TV series together, it provided us with context to really understand Kwai Chang Caine's approach to life, and it also illustrated the power of Kung Fu as a highly effective defensive art. Now, that's what scenes do. In a TV series, they give us story and they give us context. They allow us to see power, they allow us to see and gain understanding, but they give us insight, understanding, and context. Now, interestingly enough, I started writing plays when I was in elementary school. Yeah, I still look back and I find that fascinating that here was this kid that loved to write, and I had a fifth grade school teacher who saw the ability that I had and began to speak into that ability. She began to teach me about writing plays. In fact, she encouraged my fledgling talent in a very unique way. She challenged me, really asked me, but I took it as more of a challenge, to write a script, to assemble a cast of characters from the classroom, to rehearse a play, and then to perform it for the entire student body of Kavanaugh Elementary School in Fort Smith, Arkansas. I not only got the opportunity to do that once, I got the opportunity to do that, as memory serves me well, at least 3 different times. Now, the storylines that I wrote in these small plays that I put together were based upon the popular TV shows of that particular day. We're talking Westerns, we're talking science fiction, we're talking police and detective shows. So my inspiration for the plays that I wrote and that we as a group performed on stage came from shows like The Wild Wild West, Gunsmoke, Star Trek, Wonder Woman, Dragnet, and Adam 12. Now, looking back, these were very simple 3-act plays. But the experience of writing, directing, and having an opportunity to also star in those plays, well, of course I wrote myself into the play, but having the opportunity to do all of that set me on a path that helped make me the prolific writer that I am today. Now, here's what I can tell you. I learned a lot early on about stories and scenes. So let me share with you a little bit about what I learned, and I want to build that into a lesson I think you're going to be, as a matter of fact, I know you're going to be able to act upon as we wrap up today's podcast. So first was the creation of the story itself. Now, when we're talking about a story, what are we talking about? We're talking about the actual drama, a series of events that are going to be portrayed on the stage, or in the case of a TV show, on the screen. It's comprised of a series of events known as scenes, and those scenes put together would take the viewer, whether in the audience or watching by television, on a journey that would either entertain, educate, or inform. The story is the overarching message that you as the writer, you as the director, want to convey to the audience and what you want them to experience along the way. Now, the story is comprised of a series of scenes. Scenes are the individual elements of a story. Each scene can do a variety of different things. It can introduce a character. It can set up the conflict that is to come. It can reveal a plot. It can reveal a subplot. It can add context. It can provide an explanation. Scenes reveal individual moments of dialogue and action. Now, acts, when we talk about acts, an act is a collection of scenes that are strung together to provide perspective to the viewer. A series of acts, typically 3 or 4, constitute a story. Now, that story can be a novel, a play, a TV show, or a movie. Now, a series is a collection of short stories woven together to form a cohesive narrative. I mean, think about the TV shows I named earlier: Adam 12, Dragnet, Gunsmoke, The Wild Wild West, Star Trek, Wonder Woman. I could continue on, but what do we see there? Countless stories all throughout history and even today embrace this same format of storytelling on the small screen. This format, a series of pieces of information woven together into acts. Acts woven together to form a cohesive narrative known as a story are acted out on big screens and small screens, big stages and small stages every single day, all the way around the world. The format has remained unchanged going back to when we saw plays and stories acted out in early Greek culture, and probably even before that, going back to other civilizations as far back as we've got the ability to read in the history of mankind. But what are we talking about? We're talking about scenes and stories. We're talking about life. But what happens when we get stuck in a scene and that scene now defines us? Now, in the 70s, I became a Star Wars fan, and today I still enjoy the Star Wars saga. Some series I don't care as much for as others, but the original three, and then the three that kind of set it up, and then the three that followed at the end, those 9 altogether, to me, epitomize what we talk about with storytelling. But going back to episode 5 in the original first 3 of Star Wars, we're talking about The Empire Strikes Back. In that particular installment of that 3-part series, on the big screen, what do we see? Luke Skywalker. He finds out that his dad, Anakin Skywalker, was a Jedi, and he wants to follow in his father's footsteps, and he goes to train with Yoda. He discovers that there's a problem going on, and he leaves Yoda before he finishes his training to confront Darth Vader. Now, in the epic lightsaber battle that took place on the Cloud City of Bespin, what did we see? Luke and Darth Vader are battling it out. And in the middle of that conflict, Luke's right hand is severed by Darth Vader. And it's in that very painful moment that Luke learns the chilling truth that this evil Sith Lord that he is battling and fighting to the death is his father, Anakin Skywalker. Now, that leads me to a point, and I've thought about this as I've looked at this movie and prepared this lesson for this week. Let me pose this question. What if Luke had chosen to allow the loss of a limb to define the rest of his life? What if Luke, at that point, simply chose to stop fighting and went back to Tatooine and spent the rest of his life there? What if instead Luke had chosen to accept his father's request to stand by his side, and together they rule the empire as father and son? Or what if in that moment Luke Skywalker had simply chosen to give up and to die, throwing himself from the perch that he was and allowing himself to be crushed at the falling depths that were hanging below him? The story of Star Wars would have ended quite differently, and we wouldn't have had Return of the Jedi. Now, those of you that may not be Star Wars fans may say, John, that would have been great. But think about it. The story, had the ending changed and had that one moment defined Luke Skywalker, the story would have ended a lot differently. But understand this, a scene is one moment in time. A scene contributes to the story, but it's not the entire story. Now, I'm also a fan of the Avenger series. My son and I, that's something that we kind of grew up watching together. As he grew up and we were watching the Avenger series, he and I both became fans of the Avenger movies. And in the movie Infinity War, the Avengers are battling Thanos. And what's the objective? To prevent Thanos from collecting all 6 Infinity Stones, because he wanted to collect these stones to have the power of the combined stones to control reality. He believed the universe was overpopulated, and he wanted to remove 50% of the populace of the entire world to make the universe more sustainable. And as the movie gets to its climax, what happens? Thanos collects the last of the Infinity Stones. He places them into his glove, snaps his fingers, and in that moment, half of the universe's populace, individuals from all over the universe, simply dissolved into nothingness. They disintegrated into oblivion. Now, again, thinking into that moment in the context of the lesson I want to share today, what if the Avengers had simply given up? What if they simply accepted what happened and had done nothing to right the wrong? The story would have ended quite differently. Again, that scene was one moment in time. It contributed to the story, but it wasn't the entire story. So I want you to think about this. Whether it's Batman in Joker's clutches, whether it's James West snared in another of Miguelito's traps, or maybe it's Captain Kirk and the crew of the Enterprise being outmaneuvered and outgunned by an alien species, all of these stories would have ended quite differently and perhaps ended those TV series altogether if those individuals had simply accepted their fate. But they didn't, and there was another scene to be played out. Those individuals chose not to be defined by a single scene in the story, but instead they chose to define their lives by how they responded to the scene they found themselves in. They chose to write their own ending, and so should you, and so should I. So I want you to think about this. Life is a story. And every single day, the minute we open our eyes and our feet hit the floor, that day is an episode in the story of our lives. That episode, that day, today, is a series of scenes woven together to create a cohesive narrative of who we are and who we are becoming. I want you to think about that. Every single day is an episode. It is a series of scenes that we weave together to create a cohesive narrative of who we are and who we are becoming. And like Matt Dillon or Bruce Wayne or James Kirk or Diana Carter or any of the other celebrities that I could pull from the TV series that inspired my young life, just like them, you and I are central characters in our own story. I mean, after all, it is our story. And if it is our story, we are supposed to be the star of the show. But there's another question, and a more important question, that we need to ask and answer if we want to understand the lesson I'm about to share. And that question is this: who's writing the script and who is directing the action? Now, again, life is a story. Life is a series of opportunities, often disguised as problems, as challenges, and as obstacles we're going to face. Many of those situations, not scripts that we wrote ourselves. But when we find ourselves in a scene with a script that we didn't write, success is defined by our ability to solve those problems, to overcome those challenges, and to remove those obstacles standing in our way so we can continue to move forward. Now, successful people not only star in their own story, they don't allow other people to write the script. Successful people recognize that success for them is determined by how they respond to whatever life brings their way. And that requires that they write the script and they direct the action. Remember, we're going to experience conflict in life. Conflict is inevitable. It's a part of the human existence. But how we respond to conflict is going to determine whether or not we're writing our own script, we're directing our own story, or we've given that responsibility to someone or something else. Remember, scenes give a story power and context. But don't forget, scenes are a moment in time. Scenes contribute to the story, but they're not the whole story unless we choose to write the script that way or allow someone else to write the script, and that becomes the ending of the story. Now, going back to the movies and the shows I talked about earlier, in the movies, what did Luke do? Luke went on to finish his training. He went on to again face his father and ultimately defeat the evil emperor. The Avengers in the movie, they traveled back in time. They collected the Infinity Stones. They brought them back to the present. They assembled them in a similar glove device, and they allowed the Hulk to snap his fingers and to bring back the lives that Thanos had snapped into oblivion. In the movies, those individuals, those characters, those stars chose not to allow that one scene in the past to define their future. That loss, that mess up, that mistake, that defeat did not define them. Why? They wrote and then acted out their own successful version of the future. They turned the page on the script and they wrote the ending they wanted to experience. Now, that's a powerful leadership lesson that I want you to get. And let me zero in on that as we get ready to wrap up this week's teaching. If you don't like the scene you find yourself in, don't let it define you. Every single day when we wake up, it is an episode, it is a scene or a series of scenes that we're going to live out that's going to help define who we are and who we are becoming. We can choose to write the script, or we can choose to let someone or something else write it for us. If you want to be successful, you want to live a life of black belt excellence, you don't let those scenes of defeat, of mistakes, of failures, of the issues in life that come against us, not of our own making, not of our own writing, not of our own choosing. We choose instead to write the next scene, and then we choose to act it out. So every time you and I face a problem or a challenge or an obstacle, remember, it's only a single scene in the story of our lives. Every time we make a mistake, every time we stumble, every time we fall down or we fail in some way, it's only a single scene in the story of our lives. That is, unless we choose to stay there in that scene, reliving it over and over again for the rest of our lives. And it begs the question, how many of us have chosen to allow a single negative scene, a single bad scene, a single scene of conflict to determine how we're going to live our lives and simply accept that as fate rather than becoming the captain of our feet and writing our own story? Understand this, black belt leaders are intentional about directing their lives. They're not only going to be the star, they're not only going to be the writer of the script and the actor of the play, they're going to be directing the action to bring about the desired outcome that they want in life. If a black belt leader doesn't like the scene they find themselves in, as the director, they understand this. They have the power to say one magic word and bring that scene to an end. And that word is cut. When the director says cut, the camera stops, the action stops, and everybody resets. As a black belt leader, you get to do the very same thing. Also understand this, black belt leaders understand that once they say cut and they bring that bad scene to an end, they can turn the page on the script, they can set up the next scene, and they can say three simple words to start the action all over. And that's lights, camera, action. Remember, black belt leaders don't allow one scene to make or break their story, especially if it's a scene that they didn't write into the script. Life is going to happen. How we respond to life is going to be based on who's writing the script, who's directing the play, and the action that we bring as the actor and the star. So here's the takeaway I want to leave you with as I wrap up this week's lesson. A scene is a moment in time. It contributes to the story, but it's not the whole story. Every single day, we're going to find ourselves in a variety of scenes, and some of those scenes may not be scenes that we scripted for ourselves. So if you don't like the scene that you're in, be the director and cut it. And if you want to start a new scene, turn the page on the script or write a new script, set up the next scene, and start the cameras rolling. Lights, camera action. Hey, I'm Dr. John Terry, the Black Belt Leader. I want to say thanks for joining me. Have a great day.